Today, we journey into the intricate web of fate and rebellion that surrounds one of Elden Ring's most enigmatic figures, Ranni the Witch. Over the next couple hours, we'll uncover the layers of her origins, her rebellion against destiny, and her grand design to reshape the very order of the world. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin this epic adventure together through the cold, calculating brilliance of the Lunar Princess herself. Chapter 1. The Kerrion Princess. In the misty heights of northwestern Liurnia, where ancient magic still weaves through crumbling spires, stands Kerrion Manor, a testament to a noble lineage that once rivaled the might of the Golden Order itself. It was here, in these halls steeped in sorcery and moonlight, that our story begins with the birth of a princess who would one day challenge the gods themselves. Ranni the Witch, known in her youth as Lunar Princess Ranni, was born to two of the most formidable figures in the lands between, Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon, and Radagon of the Golden Order. This union represented more than mere political alliance. It was the joining of two different schools of magical tradition, the ancient moon sorceries of Kerrion and the incantations of the Golden Order. Rennala, the mother, was no ordinary queen. She was a master of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, wielding the full moon itself as her patron and source of power. Her mastery over sorcery was so complete that she could bewitch entire armies with her lunar magic, and her influence extended far beyond the boundaries of her realm. The Queen of the Full Moon commanded respect even from the demigods, her power rooted in celestial forces far older than the Erd tree itself. Radagon, the father, was equally formidable, a champion of the Golden Order who would later become the second Elden Lord after marrying Queen Marika. His red hair was a distinctive mark, one that would be inherited by several of his children, including Ranni. Radagon's prowess in battle was matched only by his devotion to the Golden Order, making him a perfect counterpart to Rennala's more mystical pursuits. The early years of Ranni's life were shaped by this unique heritage. From her mother, she inherited an intuitive understanding of sorcery and the cosmic forces that govern the movement of stars and moon. From her father, she gained an appreciation for order and structure, though she would later come to reject the particular order he championed. This dual inheritance would prove crucial in shaping the woman she would become, someone capable of both profound magical insight and strategic political thinking. Ranni was not alone in her childhood. She had two brothers who shared her mixed heritage, Raldorn, who would grow to become the mighty Star-Scourge General, and Rykard, who would eventually transform into the blasphemous, god-devouring serpent. Each of the three siblings would take different paths, but all would be marked by their exceptional magical abilities and their complex relationship with the established order of the world. The Kerrion royal family represented something unique in the lands between, a power structure that existed somewhat independently of the Golden Order, though not in direct opposition to it. They were scholars, sorcerers, and seekers of celestial wisdom. Their libraries contained knowledge that predated the arrival of the Erd tree, and their understanding of the cosmos extended beyond the earthbound concerns of most other powers. It was during these formative years that young Ranni first encountered the forces that would shape her destiny. The item description for Ranni's dark moon tells us of a pivotal moment. This moon was encountered by a young Ranni, led by the hand of her mother, Rennala. What she beheld was cold, dark, and veiled in occult mystery. This early exposure to the dark moon would prove to be far more significant than a simple magical education. It was, in many ways, her first contact with the outer god that would eventually become her patron and the foundation of her rebellion against the greater will. But Ranni's education extended beyond her immediate family. Deep in the woods surrounding Kerrion Manor, the young princess encountered a figure who would profoundly influence her development: the Snow Witch, also known as the Snowy Crone. This mysterious mentor, well versed in cold sorceries and the forbidden arts, became Ranni's secret teacher. The Snow Witch imparted not just magical knowledge, but a healthy fear and respect for the Dark Moon's power. The relationship between student and mentor was so profound that when Ranni later needed to create a new form for herself, she modeled her doll body after the appearance of this beloved teacher. The Snow Witch armor set tells us, once worn by the snowy crone who the young Ranni encountered deep in the woods, she was a witch and well-versed in cold sorceries. It is said that the doll that houses Ranni's soul was modeled after her. That old witch was Ranni's secret mentor. This secretive aspect of Ranni's education hints at something important about her character even in youth. She was already drawn to knowledge that existed outside the accepted traditions, already questioning the boundaries of what was permitted and proper. The Snow Witch represented a different kind of magical tradition, one that operated in the shadows and dealt with powers that others feared to approach. As Ranni grew into adolescence, the political landscape around her began to shift dramatically. Her father Radagon, despite his marriage to Rennala and his 3 children with her, abandoned his family to marry Queen Marika and become the second Elden Lord. This abandonment had devastating effects on the entire Kerrion royal family, but perhaps none more so than on Ranni herself, who watched her mother fall into despair and madness. The political implications of Radagon's departure were enormous. By becoming Elden Lord, he elevated his children with Rennala to the status of demigods, making them step-siblings to Marika's existing children, Godwyn the Golden, Morgott, and Morg. Later, Radagon and Marika would have 2 more children together, the twins Miquella and Melania. This complex web of family relationships would prove crucial to understanding the events that followed. But for Ranni, the most significant consequence of her new status was not the elevation in rank, but the attention it brought from the 2 fingers. These mysterious entities, serving as intermediaries for the greater will, identified Ranni as a potential successor to Queen Marika. She was designated as an Empyrean, a being capable of hosting the Elden Ring and serving as a vessel for the greater will's power. With this designation came both privilege and burden. As an Empyrean, Ranni was granted her own shadow, a powerful guardian bound to protect her, but also to ensure her loyalty to the greater will. Her shadow was Blaidd the Half-Wolf, a creature of formidable strength and unwavering devotion, though that devotion would later prove to be more complex than it initially appeared. The role of an Empyrean was presented as the highest honor possible, to potentially become a god, to wield the power of the Elden Ring, to shape the order of reality itself. But Ranni, even in her youth, recognized this honor for what it truly was, a cage. To become a god in service to the greater will meant abandoning her own agency, her own desires, her own vision for what the world could become. It meant becoming a puppet, dancing to the whims of an outer god that cared nothing for the individual lives and dreams of those it claimed to govern. This realization, combined with her secret education under the Snow Witch and her early encounter with the Dark Moon, planted the seeds of rebellion that would eventually grow into one of the most audacious schemes in the history of the Lands Between. But first, Ranni needed to grow in power and understanding. She needed to learn not just the secrets of magic, but the intricacies of politics, the nature of divine power, and the true structure of the world she intended to change. The young Ranni threw herself into her studies with the intense focus that would characterize all her future endeavors. She mastered the moon sorceries of her mother's tradition, learned the stellar magic that allowed the manipulation of gravity and fate, and delved deep into the forbidden knowledge that her secret mentor had begun to teach her. All the while, she maintained the facade of a dutiful daughter and potential successor, never revealing the revolutionary thoughts taking shape in her brilliant mind. As she came of age, Ranni's beauty and intelligence made her a notable figure in the courts of the Lands Between. She was known for her piercing intellect, her mastery of sorcery, and her seemingly dutiful acceptance of her role as an Empyrean. But beneath this public persona, she was carefully studying the very system she was meant to eventually lead, looking for its weaknesses, its contradictions, and its vulnerable points. The war counselor Iji, who would later become one of her most trusted allies, recognized her as the last true princess of the Kerrion line. This acknowledgement carried weight beyond mere titles. It represented the end of an era and the potential beginning of something entirely new. Ranni was not just the last princess. She was potentially the last hope for a different kind of future, one not dictated by the greater will's vision of order. But Ranni's greatest asset was not her magical power or her political position. It was her ability to think beyond the constraints that limited others. While her siblings and step-siblings largely accepted their roles within the existing order, even when they rebelled against specific aspects of it, Ranni alone conceived of replacing that order entirely. This fundamental difference in thinking would drive all of her subsequent actions and ultimately lead to the events that reshaped the lands between. Chapter 2. The Mentor's Shadow. To understand Ranni's transformation from dutiful princess to revolutionary witch, we must delve deeper into the mysterious figure who shaped her worldview during those crucial formative years. The Snow Witch, also known as the Snowy Crone. This enigmatic mentor represents one of the most intriguing mysteries in Ranni's story, a shadow from the past whose influence extended far beyond her mortal life. The Snow Witch was no ordinary practitioner of magic. She was described as a heretical witch who practiced forbidden sorceries deep within the woods surrounding Kerrion Manor. The term heretical is particularly significant here. It suggests that her magical practices stood in opposition to the accepted traditions of the time, whether those of the Golden Order or even the established Kerrion sorceries. She was a practitioner of the forbidden arts, someone who sought knowledge that others feared to pursue. Her mastery of cold sorceries was legendary. While Renala commanded the full moon and the Academy taught stellar sorceries focused on gravity and cosmic forces, the Snow Witch specialized in the magic of ice, frost, and the kind of deep cold that comes not from winter weather, but from the void between stars. Her magic was fundamentally different from the warm gold of the Golden Order, or even the cool silver of traditional moon magic. It was the cold of deep space, of entropy, of endings. The location of their meetings is equally significant. Deep in the woods, away from the eyes of court and academy, the Snow Witch imparted her knowledge to the young princess. These clandestine lessons were not just about magical technique, they were about a fundamentally different way of understanding the world and humanity's place within it. Where the Golden Order preached acceptance of divine will, and the Kerrion traditions focused on scholarly pursuit of cosmic knowledge, the Snow Witch taught something far more radical, the possibility of rejecting the gods entirely. The content of these lessons went beyond simple spellcraft. The Snow Witch taught Ranni to fear the dark moon. But this fear was not the cowering terror of the weak before the strong. Instead, it was the healthy respect of one who understood the true magnitude of the forces she was dealing with. The dark moon represented power on a scale that dwarfed even the greater will. Power that came with a price, but also with the potential for genuine freedom. The Snow Witch's appearance has become immortalized through Ranni's later choices. When describing the Snow Witch armor set, we learn that she was an elderly woman dressed in clothing as white as the snow itself. She wore a heavy cloak of grey furs. Intriguingly, Ranni's doll form possesses 4 arms, and while we know the doll was modelled after her mentor, it remains unclear whether the Snow Witch herself had 4 arms, or if this was a modification Ranni made to the design. This unusual feature suggests either that the Snow Witch was not entirely human, or that the 4-armed configuration was chosen for its practical advantages in spellcasting. The relationship between teacher and student was profound enough that when Ranni needed to create a new form for herself after abandoning her original body, she chose to model it after her beloved mentor. This was not merely a matter of convenience or disguise. It was a conscious decision to honor the woman who had given her the intellectual tools to conceive of genuine rebellion against the cosmic order. But who was the Snow Witch, really? The evidence suggests several intriguing possibilities, though none can be confirmed with absolute certainty. Some scholars of the lore suggest she may have been connected to the ancient civilization that predated the Golden Order, perhaps a survivor of the age when different outer gods held sway over the world. Others theorize that she was a practitioner of sorceries connected to the Eternal Cities, those underground realms that defied the greater will and were punished with destruction for their blasphemy. What we can say with certainty is that the Snow Witch possessed knowledge that was both ancient and dangerous. Her understanding of cold sorceries suggests a connection to cosmic forces that existed beyond the terrestrial concerns of most magical traditions. The cold she commanded was not merely the absence of heat, but the presence of something else, the deep cold of space, of entropy, of the void that exists between worlds. The timing of Ranni's education under the Snow Witch is also significant. These lessons occurred during the period when young Ranni was also being groomed for her role as an Empyrean, when the Two Fingers were beginning to take an interest in her development, and when the political situation in the lands between was becoming increasingly complex. The contrast between her official education and her secret lessons must have been stark, one preparing her to serve the greater will, the other opening her mind to possibilities that lay entirely outside that cosmic order. The Snow Witch's influence can be seen not just in Ranni's magical abilities, but in her entire approach to problem solving. Where others might have accepted their fate or sought to work within the existing system, Ranni learned to think in terms of complete transformation. The Snow Witch taught her that the seemingly immutable could be changed, that even the will of gods was not absolute, and that there were powers in the cosmos that could serve as alternatives to the greater will. This education also explains Ranni's later comfort with operating from the shadows, with using deception and misdirection, and with making the kinds of sacrifices that others would find unthinkable. The Snow Witch had taught her that achieving genuine change sometimes required methods that would be considered extreme or even blasphemous by conventional standards. She learned that the pursuit of true freedom might require abandoning not just political conventions, but even basic assumptions about the nature of existence itself. The influence of the Snow Witch can also be seen in Ranni's later followers and allies. Many of those who served her were, like their mistress, practitioners of forbidden or unconventional arts. Preceptor Seluvis was a master of puppet magic, creating artificial beings that served his will. War Counselor Egi was a troll who had achieved a level of intelligence and sophistication far beyond what most expected of his kind. Even Blaidd, though initially assigned as her shadow by the Two Fingers, came to serve Ranni's vision rather than his original purpose. The Snow Witch's legacy lives on not just in Ranni's appearance and magical abilities, but in her entire philosophical approach to the problems of existence. Where the Golden Order offered eternal service to divine will, and other traditions offered various forms of enlightenment or power within existing cosmic structures, the Snow Witch had taught Ranni to envision something entirely different. A cosmos where mortals could determine their own fate, free from the interference of any outer gods. This lesson would prove to be the foundation for everything that followed. The Night of the Black Knives, the shattering of the Elden Ring, the long journey to the Moonlight altar. All of these events can be traced back to the fundamental insight that the Snow Witch imparted to her young student. That the order of the world was not fixed, that the will of gods was not absolute, and that genuine freedom was possible for those brave enough to seize it. But perhaps the most important lesson the Snow Witch taught was about sacrifice. True transformation, she showed Ranni, could not be achieved without giving up something precious. For the Snow Witch, this had meant living in exile, practicing forbidden arts, and ultimately fading into obscurity. For Ranni, it would mean abandoning her physical form, orchestrating the death of her stepbrother, and setting in motion events that would plunge the lands between into chaos. the Snow Witch understood that freedom had a price, and she prepared her student to pay it. Chapter 3: The Burden of Divinity. The transition from princess to potential god was not a simple elevation for Ranni. It was the moment when the true weight of cosmic politics settled upon her shoulders. Being designated as an Empyrean by the Two Fingers was presented as the highest honor imaginable. But for someone of Ranni's intelligence and independence, it quickly revealed itself as the most elegant of prisons. The concept of Empyreans in the world of Elden Ring is complex and multifaceted. These are not simply powerful individuals or talented magic users. They are beings specifically chosen or destined to serve as vessels for the Elden Ring itself. To be an Empyrean means to be capable of hosting the fundamental force that governs reality in the lands between, to become a conduit through which an outer god can impose its will upon the world. The Two Fingers, those mysterious intermediaries of the greater will, identified certain characteristics in Ranni that made her suitable for this role. Her immense magical talent was certainly a factor, as was her royal bloodline and her connection to both the established order through her father and the older magical traditions through her mother. But there was something else, something deeper that marked her as Empyrean material, a fundamental compatibility with divine power that few possessed. But with this designation came restrictions that would chafe against Ranni's independent nature. Empyreans were not free agents. They were instruments of divine will, expected to serve the greater will's vision for the world without question or deviation. The role of a god in the Elden Ring universe is not one of unlimited power and freedom, but rather of eternal service to forces beyond mortal comprehension. Most significantly, each Empyrean was assigned a shadow, a powerful guardian created specifically to protect them, but also to ensure their loyalty. Ranni's shadow was Blaidd the Half-Wolf, a being of immense strength and seemingly unwavering devotion. On the surface, Blaidd appeared to be the perfect, loyal companion, intelligent, powerful, and utterly dedicated to Ranni's welfare. But the true nature of shadows was more sinister than it first appeared. Shadows were designed with a hidden purpose. While they would indeed protect their Empyrean charges from external threats, they were also programmed to turn against them if they ever strayed from the path ordained by the greater will. This fail-safe mechanism meant that even an Empyrean's most trusted companion could become their executioner if they showed signs of rebellion against the cosmic order. The psychological implications of this arrangement were profound. Imagine discovering that your closest friend and protector was also your potential assassin, ready to strike you down the moment you stepped out of line. For someone like Ranni, who valued autonomy and independence above all else, this knowledge must have been particularly galling. It represented the ultimate expression of the greater will's desire for control, not just over her actions, but over her relationships and emotions as well. Ranni's response to this situation reveals much about her character. Rather than accepting the role thrust upon her, or attempting to work within its constraints, she began to plan something unprecedented, a complete rejection of her Empyrean status and the cosmic order it represented. This was not mere rebellion. It was a fundamental challenge to the nature of reality itself. The education she had received from the Snow Witch proved crucial during this period. While others might have seen the Empyrean designation as an inescapable fate, Ranni had been taught to think beyond the constraints that limited most beings. The Snow Witch had shown her that even the will of gods was not absolute, that there were other powers in the cosmos, and that transformation was possible for those bold enough to attempt it. But rejecting her Empyrean status would require more than simply declaring her independence. The power structures of the cosmos were not built to accommodate such rebellion. The greater will had invested significant resources in grooming her for godhood, and it would not simply allow her to walk away, Any attempt at freedom would need to be both subtle and catastrophic. Subtle enough to avoid detection until it was too late, catastrophic enough to create genuine change, rather than mere defiance. Ranni began to study the fundamental forces that governed the world with new intensity. She delved into the nature of the death and life, the structure of the Elden Ring itself, and the weaknesses inherent in the cosmic order. Her access to the royal libraries of Kerrion and her connections to the Academy of Raya Lucaria gave her resources that few others possessed. More importantly, her status as an Empyrean gave her insights into the workings of divine power that would have been impossible for others to obtain. It was during this period of intense study and planning that Ranni first conceived of the plan that would eventually become known as the Night of the Black Knives. But this was not a sudden inspiration. It was the culmination of years of careful research and analysis. She needed to find a way to escape her fate that would be both effective and irreversible, something that would free her from the greater will's control while simultaneously opening up new possibilities for the future. The key insight came from her understanding of the Rune of Death. This fundamental force had been removed from the Elden Ring by Queen Marika and entrusted to her shadow, Malekith the Black Blade. The official reason for this action was to grant immortality to the inhabitants of the lands between, to create an age where death was no longer a threat to the established order. But Ranni realized that the absence of death was also what made the cosmic order so inflexible. Without the possibility of true endings, there could be no genuine new beginnings. If she could somehow restore death to the world, or at least to specific individuals, it might create the kind of fundamental disruption needed to break free from her predetermined fate. But the Rune of Death was heavily guarded, and any attempt to steal it would immediately mark her as a traitor to the cosmic order. She needed a plan that would be both bold and subtle, something that would achieve her goals while maintaining plausible deniability. The solution she devised was as brilliant as it was ruthless. Rather than attempting to steal the entire Rune of Death, she would take only a fragment of it. This fragment would be used to create weapons capable of killing even gods. The Black Knives wielded by Numen assassins. But the target of these weapons would not be her enemies. It would be herself. And through a carefully orchestrated ritual, her stepbrother Godwyn as well. The plan required perfect timing and precise execution. Both she and Godwyn would need to die at exactly the same moment, but in different ways. Godwyn would die in soul while his body lived on, becoming what would later be known as the Prince of Death. Ranni would die in body while preserving her soul, allowing her to transfer her consciousness into an artificial form of her own choosing. This split death would fracture the Rune of Death itself, creating two half-wheels instead of a complete circle. The curse mark of death would be imprinted upon both of them, marking them as the first demigods to experience mortality since the removal of death from the world. But more importantly, it would free Ranni from her obligations as an Empyrean, while giving her the tools she needed to pursue an alternative path to godhood. The choice to involve Godwyn in her plan was not made lightly. Despite being step-siblings, they had little personal relationship. Godwyn was Queen Marika's golden child, the perfect embodiment of the Golden Order's ideals, while Ranni was the daughter of Radagon's previous marriage. But Godwyn's death would serve multiple purposes beyond simply providing the other half of the ritual. It would devastate Queen Marika emotionally, potentially driving her to actions that would further destabilize the cosmic order. It would also remove one of the most powerful supporters of the existing system, creating a power vacuum that could be exploited later. The psychological toll of planning such an action cannot be underestimated. Ranni was orchestrating not just her own death, but the murder of an innocent family member. The fact that she was willing to pay such a price speaks to both her determination and her understanding of what was at stake. From her perspective, the death of one demigod, even an innocent one, was a small price to pay for the liberation of all mortal life from the tyranny of the outer gods. But perhaps most remarkably, Ranni managed to maintain her facade throughout this entire period. To outside observers, she appeared to be a dutiful potential successor, someone who was preparing for the possibility of eventual godhood with appropriate seriousness. Her magical studies seemed like natural preparation for divine responsibilities. Her political activities appeared to be those of a responsible royal heir, and even her closest companions had no idea of the revolutionary thoughts taking shape in her mind. This ability to maintain multiple layers of deception while pursuing a goal of almost unprecedented ambition speaks to Ranni's exceptional intelligence and emotional control. She was playing a game of cosmic politics where a single mistake could result not just in her own destruction, but in the elimination of any possibility of genuine change for countless generations. The pressure must have been enormous, but she never wavered in her commitment to her ultimate goal. The burden of her Empyrean status had been intended to prepare her for godhood, but instead, it taught her something far more valuable, that even the most fundamental aspects of reality could be changed by someone with sufficient knowledge, determination, and willingness to sacrifice. The greater will had sought to create a perfect servant, but instead, it had created its most dangerous enemy. Chapter 4. The Night of Black Knives. In the annals of the lands between, few events have had such profound and lasting consequences as the Night of the Black Knives. This single evening of coordinated assassination would shatter the established order, set in motion the events leading to the shattering war, and ultimately create the conditions necessary for Ranni's long-term plan to succeed. But to understand the true significance of this night, we must examine not just what happened, but how it was orchestrated and why it was necessary. The preparation for this night had taken years of careful planning and resource gathering. Ranni could not simply steal a fragment of the rune of death and hope for the best. She needed to ensure that the ritual would work perfectly, that the assassins would be able to complete their tasks, and that she herself would survive the transformation from living being to disembodied soul. Every aspect of the plan had to be coordinated with precision that left no room for error. The first challenge was obtaining the fragment of the rune of death itself. This fundamental force had been sealed away by Queen Merica and entrusted to Malekith, the Black Blade, one of the most powerful beings in the lands between. Malekith was not just a guardian, he was the very embodiment of destined death, a creature whose entire existence was devoted to keeping mortality locked away from the world. Stealing from him required not just courage, but a deep understanding of his nature and the forces he commanded. Ranni's approach to this challenge demonstrates her sophisticated understanding of both magical theory and practical politics. Rather than attempting a direct confrontation with Malekith, which would have been suicide, she found a way to extract a small fragment of the rune of death without alerting him to the theft. The exact method she used remains unclear, but it likely involved some combination of stealth, misdirection, and perhaps the exploitation of Malekith's own psychological weaknesses. Once she possessed the fragment, Ranni needed to transform it into something that could be used by mortal assassins. The creation of the Black Knives themselves was a masterwork of magical engineering. These weapons needed to be capable of killing even divine beings, but they also needed to be precise enough to kill only the soul, in Godwyn's case, or only the body, in her own case. The ritual that imbued the knives with the power of death was described as fearsome, suggesting that it required not just technical skill, but considerable personal risk. The choice of assassins was equally crucial. The Black Knife assassins were all women, and they were all Numen, the same race as Queen Merica herself. This was not coincidental. The Numen were said to be close to Queen Merica, which gave them the access necessary to reach high-value targets. But more importantly, their racial connection to the Queen provided a layer of misdirection that would complicate any investigation into the assassinations. The identity of these assassins raises intriguing questions about the extent of Ranni's network and the depth of discontent with the current order. Were these women volunteers who shared Ranni's revolutionary vision, or were they somehow coerced or deceived into participating? The fact that they were new men suggests that the rebellion against the Golden Order extended into the very heart of America's power structure. This was not just an external challenge to the established order, it was a cancer that had grown within the system itself. The timing of the assassinations was critical. Both Godwin and Ranni needed to die at precisely the same moment for the ritual to work correctly. This required not just coordination across vast distances, but perfect timing down to the second. Godwin was targeted at his location, while Ranni was positioned atop a tall tower in a distant part of the lands between. The precision required for this coordination suggests the use of magical communication methods, or perhaps astronomical timing based on celestial events. The actual execution of the plan required Ranni to demonstrate almost superhuman emotional control. She needed to orchestrate her own death while maintaining the composure necessary to transfer her soul into the prepared doll body. This was not simply a matter of magical technique. It required her to face her own mortality with absolute calm while simultaneously managing the complex magical processes that would preserve her consciousness in a new form. The choice of the doll's appearance was deeply personal. Rather than creating an idealized form or adopting a disguise, Ranni chose to model her new body after her beloved mentor, the Snow Witch. This decision speaks to the profound influence that the old crone had had on her development, but it also served practical purposes. The four-armed form, whether inherited from the Snow Witch's original appearance or an enhancement of Ranni's own design, would provide additional capability for manipulating magical energies, while the distinctive appearance would mark her as something entirely new, neither fully human nor fully divine. The immediate aftermath of the assassinations sent shockwaves throughout the lands between. Godwin's death was particularly traumatic because it was the first time in living memory that a demigod had died. The inhabitants of the realm had grown accustomed to the immortality granted by the absence of the rune of death, and the sudden return of mortality created a fundamental crisis of confidence in the established order. Queen Merica's reaction to her firstborn son's death was exactly what Ranni had anticipated. The grief-stricken queen shattered the Elden Ring itself, an act that would have seemed impossible before this night. This was not just an emotional response, it was a practical reaction to the realization that the cosmic order she had devoted her existence to maintaining was fundamentally flawed. If even demigods could be killed, then the promise of eternal security under the Golden Order was a lie. The shattering of the Elden Ring created the conditions that Ranni needed for the next phase of her plan. With the fundamental organizing principle of reality broken into fragments, the rigid hierarchies of the Golden Order began to collapse. The various demigods claimed shards of the ring for themselves, leading to the conflicts that would become known as the Shattering War. In the chaos that followed, Ranni was able to operate with relative freedom, pursuing her own agenda while others were distracted by more immediate concerns. But the Night of the Black Knives also created problems that Ranni had not fully anticipated. The return of death to the world was not limited to the specific targets of the assassination. Godwin's spiritual death created a new form of undeath that began to spread throughout the lands between, affecting not just him, but creating an entire category of beings known as those who live in death. This uncontrolled spread of deathly influence would eventually require active management to prevent it from undermining the very foundations of reality. The investigation into the assassinations also created complications. While Ranni had carefully obscured her involvement, the evidence of magical manipulation was obvious to those with the expertise to recognize it. Sorcerer Rogier, through careful detective work, was eventually able to identify her as the architect of the plot. This created ongoing risks that required careful management throughout the subsequent years. Perhaps most significantly, the Night of the Black Knives established Ranni as a figure of immense power and ruthless determination. Word of her involvement spread through certain circles, creating both allies and enemies. Some saw her as a liberator who had struck a blow against divine tyranny, while others viewed her as a dangerous revolutionary who threatened the stability of the world. This reputation would prove to be both an asset and a liability in the years that followed. The psychological impact of the Night on Ranni herself should not be underestimated. She had successfully executed the most audacious plan in the history of the Lands Between, but at enormous personal cost. She had abandoned her physical form, orchestrated the death of an innocent family member, and set in motion events that would cause suffering for countless people. The weight of these actions must have been crushing, even for someone with her iron determination. Yet there was no turning back. The Night of the Black Knives had burned all bridges. There could be no reconciliation with the Golden Order, no return to her previous life, no peaceful resolution to the conflict she had initiated. She was now committed to seeing her revolution through to its conclusion, regardless of the cost in human suffering or personal sacrifice. The success of this night also validated the lessons she had learned from the Snow Witch. The seemingly immutable cosmic order could indeed be changed by someone with sufficient knowledge and determination. The greater will, for all its power, was not omnipotent. It could be surprised, confused, and forced to react to events beyond its control. This realization would fuel Ranni's confidence in the even more ambitious phases of her plan that were yet to come. Chapter 5. The Doll's Masquerade. The transformation from living princess to animate doll marked the beginning of the most complex phase of Ranni's plan. No longer bound by the limitations of mortal flesh or the expectations of her royal position, she was free to operate in the shadows, building the network of allies and resources she would need for the challenges ahead. But this freedom came at a price. She was now something entirely new, neither fully alive nor entirely dead, existing in a liminal state that few could understand. The doll body itself was a masterwork of magical engineering. Created in the likeness of her beloved mentor, the Snow Witch, it possessed 4 arms that allowed for more complex spellcasting and manipulation of magical energies. Though whether this design feature came from the original Snow Witch or was an enhancement Ranni added, remains a mystery. The pale blue skin and flowing hair were not merely aesthetic choices. They reflected her new nature as a being touched by cosmic forces beyond normal human experience. The sealed left eye bore an azure sigil, a mark of her connection to lunar powers and perhaps a safeguard against certain forms of magical detection. But the most remarkable aspect of the doll was its ability to house Ranni's complete consciousness. This was not mere automation or artificial intelligence. It was genuine transference of a living soul into an artificial form. The magical processes required for such a feat were likely unprecedented, drawing upon knowledge from multiple traditions and perhaps innovations that Ranni developed herself through her studies with the Snow Witch and her own research. The fact that she not only survived the transfer but retained all of her memories, personality, and magical abilities speaks to her extraordinary mastery of forces that most would consider impossible to control. The early years following the Night of the Black Knives were marked by careful observation and strategic patience. Ranni needed to allow the immediate chaos to play out while positioning herself for the longer-term challenges she knew were coming. The Shattering War provided excellent cover for her activities, with the various demigods fighting over fragments of the Elden Ring. Few had time or resources to investigate the mysterious disappearance of the Lunar Princess. During this period, Ranni began to gather the allies who would prove crucial to her ultimate success. War Counselor Iji, a troll of exceptional intelligence and loyalty, became her primary advisor and logistical coordinator. His understanding of both practical politics and magical theory made him invaluable in planning the complex operations that lay ahead. More importantly, his unwavering devotion to Ranni personally, rather than to any cosmic order, made him one of the few beings she could trust completely. Preceptor Seluvis represented a different type of ally, one whose usefulness was matched by his potential danger. A master of puppet magic and transformation sorceries, Seluvis possessed knowledge that Ranni needed, but his personal agenda often conflicted with her broader goals. Managing this relationship required constant vigilance and careful manipulation, as Seluvis was always looking for opportunities to advance his own interests at others' expense. The relationship with Blaidd presented unique challenges. As her designated shadow, he was bound to protect her, but the true nature of that binding meant he could become her enemy if she strayed too far from the path the greater will intended for her. Ranni's solution to this problem demonstrates her sophisticated understanding of both magical mechanics and psychology. Rather than simply trying to avoid triggering Blaidd's hidden programming, she worked to strengthen his personal loyalty to her, creating emotional bonds that might override his cosmic programming when the crucial moment arrived. But perhaps the most important development during this period was Ranni's adoption of the alias Ranni. This identity allowed her to interact with the wider world without revealing her true nature, giving her the freedom to gather information, make contacts, and influence events from behind the scenes. The name itself was likely chosen as a tribute to her mentor. Ranni may have been the true name of the Snow Witch, whose appearance Ranni had adopted for her doll form. The Ranni persona served multiple purposes beyond simple disguise. It allowed Ranni to test potential allies without revealing the full scope of her plans, to gather intelligence about the changing political situation, and to begin building the reputation that would eventually attract the tarnished champion she needed. The fact that she chose to present herself as a witch rather than hiding her magical nature entirely suggests that she was already beginning to think about the kind of follower she would eventually need. Someone who would be attracted to power and mystery rather than repelled by them. One of the most significant challenges during this period was managing the ongoing consequences of the Night of the Black Knives. The spread of Deathroot from Godwyn's corrupted body was creating instability throughout the lands between, manifesting as undead creatures and areas of spiritual contamination. While this chaos served Ranni's purposes by keeping the established authorities distracted, it also threatened to spiral out of control in ways that could undermine her long-term goals. Ranni's response to this challenge demonstrates her pragmatic approach to unintended consequences. Rather than trying to completely suppress the effects of Godwyn's undeath, she found ways to channel and control them. The emergence of those who live in death created a new category of beings who existed outside the normal order, beings who might prove useful as allies in her eventual confrontation with the cosmic hierarchy. The doll form also provided Ranni with unique capabilities that proved crucial to her long-term planning. Her artificial body did not age, tire, or require sustenance in the same way as a mortal form. This allowed her to maintain continuous vigilance over her plans, to study and experiment without the normal limitations of human endurance, and to make strategic decisions with a timeline that extended far beyond normal human lifespans. But perhaps most importantly, the doll form allowed Ranni to exist partially outside the normal rules that governed interaction with cosmic forces. The greater will's influence was designed to work on living beings with souls naturally bound to physical forms. Ranni's artificial existence created a kind of blind spot in these cosmic systems, allowing her to operate with a degree of freedom that would have been impossible in her original form. This freedom came with its own costs, however. The doll body, while impressive, was still a limitation compared to her original form. It required periodic maintenance and was vulnerable to certain types of damage that would not have affected her natural body. More significantly, the artificial nature of her existence meant that she was increasingly isolated from normal human experience, making it more difficult to maintain the emotional connections that had once grounded her. The isolation was perhaps the greatest challenge of this period. Cut off from her family, her homeland, and even her own original identity, Ranni had to rely entirely on her own resources and the small circle of allies she had carefully cultivated. The psychological strain of maintaining multiple deceptions while pursuing goals of unprecedented ambition would have broken most beings. But Ranni's determination never wavered. During the long years of preparation that followed the Night of the Black Knives, Ranni also had to confront the growing realization that her plans would require not just the disruption of the existing order, but the cultivation of a replacement. It was not enough to tear down the Golden Order. She needed to have something ready to take its place. This realization led to increasingly intensive study of the Dark Moon and the cosmic forces it represented. The Dark Moon was not simply another outer god seeking to replace the Greater Will. It represented something fundamentally different. Where the Greater Will sought to impose order through control and hierarchy, the Dark Moon offered a kind of distant governance that would allow mortal beings to determine their own fates. But harnessing this power would require more than just magical technique. It would require a fundamental transformation of Ranni herself from demigod rebel to cosmic sovereign. The preparation for this transformation required Ranni to push the boundaries of her artificial existence even further. She began experimenting with ways to extend her consciousness beyond the limitations of the doll form, exploring the possibility of existing as a more distributed entity. These experiments were dangerous. There was always the risk that spreading her consciousness too thin would result in complete dissolution, but they were necessary for the role she intended to play. As the years passed and the shattering war continued to rage, Ranni began to see the first signs that her long-term strategy was working. The established order was fracturing not just politically, but metaphysically. The rigid hierarchies that had once seemed immutable were proving to be more fragile than anyone had imagined. The time was approaching when she would need to move from the shadows into open action. But first, she needed to find the agent who would make her final victory possible. The Tarnished represented something unprecedented. Beings who had been exiled from the lands between, but were now returning with the potential to claim the title of Elden Lord. Unlike the existing demigods, who were bound by their histories and relationships within the cosmic order, the Tarnished came from outside the system and might therefore be capable of genuinely transforming it. But finding the right Tarnished, one with the power to succeed, but also the wisdom to serve her vision, would require careful evaluation. Chapter 6. The Tarnished Gambit. The return of the Tarnished to the lands between represented both an opportunity and a risk for Ranni's long-term plans. These warriors, exiled by Queen Marika herself in ages past, now returned with the blessing of grace and the potential to claim the throne of Elden Lord. But their very existence posed a fundamental question. Would they serve to reinforce the existing cosmic order, or could they be turned into agents of genuine transformation? Ranni's first encounter with a promising Tarnished occurred at the Church of Ella, where she appeared in her Ranni disguise to offer the spirit calling bell. This seemingly simple gift was actually a sophisticated test, designed to evaluate both the Tarnished's magical potential and their willingness to accept power from unconventional sources. The bell itself was significant. It had once belonged to Torrent's previous master, connecting the Tarnished to a network of relationships and obligations that Ranni had been carefully cultivating. The identity of Torrent's previous master remains one of the intriguing mysteries surrounding Ranni's operations. The spectral steed was clearly more than just a mount. It was a symbol of legitimacy, a tool for evaluating potential champions, and perhaps even a means of magical communication. The fact that Ranni possessed the spirit-calling bell suggests that she had either been entrusted with it by Torrent's master or had acquired it through other means after that individual's fate was determined. The Church of Ella encounter also demonstrated Ranni's sophisticated understanding of psychology and motivation. Rather than approaching the Tarnished directly with her true identity and agenda, she chose to present herself as a helpful stranger, offering useful tools. This approach served multiple purposes. It allowed her to evaluate the Tarnished's character without revealing her own vulnerabilities. It created a sense of debt and obligation that could be called upon later, and it began the process of drawing the Tarnished into her network of relationships and dependencies. The choice to reveal her magical nature while concealing her true identity was also significant. The witch persona suggested power and mystery without the political complications that would have come with revealing her royal heritage. It marked her as someone operating outside the normal hierarchies of the lands between. Dangerous, perhaps, but also potentially valuable as an ally. For a Tarnished seeking to navigate the complex politics of a fractured realm, such a contact could prove invaluable. But Ranni's evaluation of potential Tarnished champions extended far beyond this initial encounter. She needed to assess not just their combat capabilities, but their wisdom, their independence of thought, and their willingness to challenge established authority. The perfect champion would need to be powerful enough to defeat the greatest warriors and monsters of the age, but also clever enough to see through the deceptions and half-truths that permeated the Lands Between's political landscape. The test she ultimately devised was elaborate and multifaceted, requiring the Tarnished to demonstrate their abilities across multiple domains. They would need to prove their combat prowess by defeating some of the most powerful beings in the realm. They would need to show their problem-solving abilities by navigating complex challenges that required both magical knowledge and strategic thinking. Most importantly, they would need to demonstrate their commitment to Ranni's vision by accepting tasks that other champions might find morally questionable. The first major test came with the requirement to reach Ranni's rise itself. This journey required the Tarnished to penetrate Kerrion Manor, defeat Royal Knight Loretta, and prove themselves worthy of approaching the last princess of the Kerrion line. The manor itself was designed as a gauntlet, filled with magical guardians and arcane puzzles that would challenge both the Tarnished's combat skills and their understanding of sorceress principles. Royal Knight Loretta represented a particularly significant challenge, as she was a remnant of the old Kerrion military tradition, a warrior who combined physical prowess with sophisticated magical abilities. Defeating her required not just brute force, but tactical thinking and adaptability. More importantly, the nature of Loretta's challenge tested the Tarnished's willingness to confront legitimate authority figures in pursuit of their goals. Upon reaching Ranni's rise and being offered the chance to enter her service, the Tarnished faced their first explicit moral choice in her questline. Serving Ranni meant accepting association with the architect of the Knight of the Black Knives, someone who had orchestrated the death of an innocent demigod and set in motion the events that plunged the Lands Between into chaos. A champion motivated primarily by conventional morality might well refuse such service, but Ranni needed someone who could see beyond simple categories of good and evil to the larger questions of freedom and cosmic justice. The quest to find Nokron and retrieve the Fingerslayer blade served multiple purposes in Ranni's grand design. On the practical level, she genuinely needed this artifact to proceed with her plans. The blade was specifically designed to harm the Greater Will and would be essential for her eventual confrontation with the Cosmic Order. But the quest also served as an extended evaluation of the Tarnished's capabilities, resourcefulness, and commitment. The requirement to defeat Starscourge Radahn was particularly significant, as it forced the Tarnished to confront one of Ranni's own siblings. This was not just a test of combat ability, it was a measure of the Tarnished's willingness to put Ranni's agenda above conventional family loyalties and political considerations. The fact that Radahn had to die to free the stars and allow access to Nokron created a direct connection between the Tarnished's actions and Ranni's ultimate goals. The festival at Redmane Castle added another layer of complexity to this challenge. Rather than simply ambushing Radahn or challenging him to single combat, the Tarnished was required to participate in a formal celebration of warfare that brought together warriors from across the Lands Between. This social dimension of the challenge tested the Tarnished's ability to operate within existing power structures while pursuing revolutionary goals. The journey through Nokron itself presented challenges that went beyond simple combat or puzzle solving. The Eternal City represented a civilization that had once defied the Greater Will and been punished with destruction for their rebellion. Navigating its ruins required the Tarnished to confront the consequences of challenging cosmic authority. Both the potential rewards and the terrible costs that such defiance could entail. The Fingerslayer blade itself was an artifact of immense symbolic as well as practical significance. Forged from the remains of a god, it represented the possibility that divine beings were not truly immortal, that even the mightiest cosmic forces could be opposed and defeated by those with sufficient determination and the right tools. Claiming this weapon marked the Tarnished as someone willing to contemplate genuine deicide, not just the defeat of earthly rulers, but the overthrow of the cosmic order itself. But perhaps the most crucial test came with Ranni's apparent disappearance and the requirement for the Tarnished to pursue her into the depths of the earth. This phase of the questline required not just loyalty, but genuine devotion, the willingness to follow Ranni into increasingly dangerous and alien environments without guarantee of reward or even survival. The encounter with the baleful shadow provided a direct confrontation with the consequences of Ranni's rebellion. This creature, likely sent by the Greater Will or its agents, represented the cosmic order's attempt to eliminate the threat she posed. The fact that the Tarnished was willing to fight such a being in defense of Ranni's goals demonstrated a level of commitment that went beyond mere service. It showed a genuine adoption of her revolutionary vision. The journey through the Lake of Rot tested the Tarnished's determination in the face of corruption and decay. The Rot represented not just a physical challenge, but a spiritual one, the temptation to give up in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Those who persevered through this trial demonstrated the kind of unbreakable will that Ranni needed in her ultimate champion. The confrontation with Astel, natural born of the Void, served as a test of the Tarnished's ability to face cosmic horrors that existed beyond normal understanding. Astel was not just a powerful monster, but a representative of the kind of alien forces that existed in the spaces between worlds. Defeating such a being required not just physical courage, but the mental fortitude to confront the reality of a universe filled with powers that dwarfed human comprehension. Throughout all of these trials, Ranni maintained her careful observation of the Tarnished's development. She was not just testing their abilities, but also shaping them into the kind of champion she would need for the final phase of her plan. Each challenge was designed to strip away conventional assumptions and limitations, to forge a warrior capable of thinking and acting on a cosmic scale. The successful completion of these trials marked the Tarnished as something unprecedented. A mortal being who had proven capable of challenging gods, navigating cosmic mysteries, and maintaining their commitment to revolutionary ideals in the face of overwhelming opposition. Such a champion could potentially succeed where others had failed, not through superior strength alone, but through the combination of power, wisdom, and unshakable determination that Ranni's cause required. Chapter 7. The Shadow's Betrayal. The relationship between Ranni and Blaidd, the Half-Wolf, represents one of the most complex and tragic aspects of her story. What began as a cosmic assignment designed to ensure her loyalty to the Greater Will evolved into a genuine bond of mutual affection and respect, only to be ultimately corrupted by the very forces that had created it. Understanding this relationship and its inevitable breakdown is crucial to comprehending both the personal costs of Ranni's rebellion and the sophisticated nature of the cosmic order's control mechanisms. Blaidd was not created as a conventional guardian or companion. As Ranni's shadow, He was specifically designed by the Greater Will to serve dual purposes, protecting her from external threats while simultaneously monitoring her for signs of disloyalty to the cosmic order. This dual nature was built into his very essence, creating internal contradictions that would eventually tear him apart as Ranni's rebellion progressed. The initial relationship between Ranni and Blaidd appears to have been genuinely positive. Despite his artificial origins and programmed loyalties, Blaidd developed what seemed to be authentic affection for Ranni. He was described as having sworn to serve no master but her, a declaration that suggested his programming had evolved beyond its original parameters to encompass genuine personal devotion. This evolution of Blaidd's loyalty created a fascinating paradox. The Greater Will had intended him to be an unquestioning servant who would turn against Ranni if she strayed from the ordained path. But the very effectiveness of his design, his intelligence, his capacity for genuine emotion, his ability to form meaningful relationships, made him capable of loyalties that transcended his original programming. In a sense, the cosmic order had created a being too sophisticated for its own purposes. Ranni, for her part, seems to have been genuinely fond of Blaidd, despite her knowledge of his true nature. This affection created one of the few purely positive relationships in her life after the Night of the Black Knives. While she was forced to maintain deceptions with most of her allies, her interactions with Blaidd could be more authentic because his loyalty was both programmed and genuine. But Ranni also understood that this relationship was ultimately doomed. Her studies of cosmic mechanics had taught her that shadows were designed with fail-safes that would eventually activate if their charges strayed too far from the Greater Will's intentions. No matter how strong Blaidd's personal loyalty might become, his fundamental programming would eventually reassert itself as her rebellion reached its climax. The gradual breakdown of Blaidd's mental stability provides a window into the cruel sophistication of the cosmic order's control mechanisms. Rather than simply turning him against Ranni when she began to act against the Greater Will's interests, his programming created an increasingly painful internal conflict. He remained emotionally loyal to Ranni while being compelled by forces beyond his control to oppose her goals. This internal conflict manifested in various ways throughout Ranni's questline. Blaidd's increasing agitation and confusion became apparent to careful observers, as did his growing tendency toward violence and aggression. The programming was not simply overriding his personality, it was tearing it apart from within, creating a tragic figure caught between irreconcilable loyalties. The situation was further complicated by Blaidd's intelligence and self-awareness. Unlike a simple automaton that might be reprogrammed without understanding the change, Blaidd was acutely aware of what was happening to him. He could feel his own mind being torn apart by conflicting imperatives, could sense the growing compulsion to betray the person he cared most about, but was powerless to prevent it. Ranni's response to Blaidd's deteriorating condition reveals both her pragmatic nature and her genuine affection for him. She could have simply eliminated him once his usefulness ended or his instability became too dangerous. Instead, she chose to delay the inevitable confrontation as long as possible, allowing him to maintain his sense of purpose and dignity, even as his programming inexorably pulled him toward betrayal. The decision to have him imprisoned by Iji represents one of Ranni's most morally complex choices. On one level, this was a practical decision designed to protect both Blaidd and the success of her mission. His increasing instability made him a liability that could compromise everything she had worked toward. But on another level, it was an act of mercy, an attempt to spare him the pain of conscious betrayal and to preserve whatever remained of his dignity. But even imprisonment could not indefinitely delay the activation of his shadow programming. The magical compulsions built into his nature were too strong to be contained by mere physical restraints. As Ranni's plan approached its climax, the force compelling him to oppose her became overwhelming, driving him to levels of desperation and violence that overcame any barriers placed in his way. The final confrontation between Blaidd and the Tarnished represents the tragic culmination of this impossible situation. By this point, Blaidd had been driven completely mad by the conflict between his personal loyalty and his cosmic programming. He was no longer capable of rational thought or communication. He had become a feral creature driven entirely by compulsions he could neither understand nor control. The fact that the Tarnished was forced to kill Blaidd rather than Ranni herself doing it speaks to both practical and emotional considerations. From a practical standpoint, Ranni was likely not present in physical form at the moment when Blaidd's breakdown reached its climax. But more importantly, having her champion handle this final tragedy spared her the emotional trauma of personally destroying someone she had genuinely cared about. The items left behind after Blaidd's death, his armor and his uniquely modified greatsword, serve as memorials to both his service and his tragedy. The royal greatsword had been imbued with cold magic at the moment he swore his oath to Ranni, marking it as a symbol of their relationship at its most positive. The fact that this weapon retained its magical properties even after his death suggests that his loyalty to Ranni, despite everything, had been genuine and profound. Ranni's own reflections on Blaidd's fate, expressed in her dialogue after his death, reveal the emotional cost of her choices. She acknowledged that his end was inevitable, given the path she had chosen, but she also expressed genuine grief for what had been lost. This moment of vulnerability provides one of the few glimpses we get of the personal toll that her rebellion had taken on her. The broader implications of Blaidd's story extend beyond the personal tragedy. His fate serves as a demonstration of the cosmic order's capacity for cruelty and the lengths to which it would go to maintain control. The greater will had not simply created a guardian, it had created a being capable of love and loyalty, then programmed him to betray those very emotions when they conflicted with cosmic imperatives. This calculated cruelty helps explain why Ranni's rebellion was necessary from her perspective. A cosmic order that would create beings like Blaidd only to destroy them when they developed inconvenient emotions was not worthy of continued obedience. The tragedy of his fate served to validate her conviction that the greater will's influence needed to be removed from the world entirely. The shadow system also reveals the sophisticated nature of the cosmic order's control mechanisms. Rather than relying solely on external threats or obvious coercion, it created internal conflicts that would tear potential rebels apart from within. This approach was far more effective than crude intimidation, because it used the rebels' own emotions and relationships against them. Blaidd's story serves as a cautionary tale about the costs of challenging cosmic authority, but it also demonstrates that such challenges can succeed despite the personal tragedies they entail. His sacrifice, tragic as it was, contributed to Ranni's ultimate victory by removing one of the major obstacles to her success. In death, he served her cause more effectively than he could have in life, though the irony of this situation only adds to its tragic nature. Chapter 8. The Underground Odyssey. The journey into the depths beneath the lands between represents the most physically and spiritually challenging phase of Ranni's questline, taking both her and her chosen champion through realms that exist at the boundaries of reality itself. This descent is not merely a geographical journey, but a symbolic passage through increasingly alien and hostile environments that test every assumption about the nature of existence and the possibility of genuine transformation. The initial descent through Renna's Rise and the teleporter to Ainsel River Main marks the beginning of this underground odyssey. The very fact that Ranni had access to such ancient transportation networks speaks to the depth of her preparation and the extent of her knowledge about the hidden infrastructure of the world. These teleporters were likely constructed by civilizations that predated the Golden Order, representing technologies and magical principles that existed outside the accepted paradigms of the current age. The Ainsel River region itself presents a landscape that seems almost deliberately hostile to surface dwellers. The perpetual twilight, the alien architecture, and the strange creatures that inhabit this space all serve to remind visitors that they have entered a realm where normal rules no longer apply. This is not simply an underground cave system, it is a different world entirely, one that operates according to principles that surface civilizations have forgotten or never learned. The discovery of the miniature Ranni doll in a coffin near the teleporter represents a crucial moment in understanding her nature and capabilities. The fact that she could exist simultaneously in her main doll form and in this smaller vessel suggests that her consciousness was more distributed and flexible than it initially appeared. This multiplicity of forms would prove crucial to her survival during the events that followed. The initial refusal of the miniature doll to communicate with the Tarnished is significant. It demonstrates Ranni's caution and her unwillingness to reveal herself until she was certain of their commitment and capability. Only after repeated attempts at contact does she finally acknowledge their presence and explain the danger that has forced her into hiding in this remote location. The threat posed by the baleful shadow represents more than just another combat challenge. It is a direct manifestation of the cosmic order's response to Ranni's rebellion. This creature was likely sent specifically to eliminate her, marking a significant escalation in the conflict between her revolutionary agenda and the established powers. The fact that such a being could track her even into the depths of the earth speaks to the sophisticated surveillance and enforcement capabilities of the Greater Will's agents. The baleful shadow's appearance and abilities provide clues about the nature of the forces arrayed against Ranni. Its wolf-like form suggests a connection to the shadow system that had already claimed Blaidd, while its supernatural tracking abilities and resistance to normal weapons mark it as something far beyond ordinary mortal capabilities. This is cosmic enforcement made manifest, a creature designed specifically to eliminate threats to the established order. The battle against the baleful shadow serves multiple purposes in the broader narrative. On the practical level, it removes a direct threat to Ranni's continued existence, but more importantly, it demonstrates the Tarnished's willingness to confront the Cosmic Order's agents directly in defense of Ranni's goals. This is not just loyalty to a quest giver, it is active participation in a rebellion against divine authority. The reward for defeating the baleful shadow, the discarded palace key, provides access to one of the most significant artifacts in Ranni's quest, the Dark Moon Ring. This ring, hidden away in the Grand Library of Raya Lucaria, represents the culmination of years of preparation and planning. Its very existence suggests that Ranni had been laying the groundwork for her eventual transformation long before the Night of the Black Knives. The location of the ring is significant. Hidden in the very heart of the academy that her mother once ruled, protected by magical barriers that could only be bypassed by someone who had proven their commitment to Ranni's cause. This placement suggests that Rennala, despite her madness, may have been more aware of her daughter's plans than she typically appeared. The ring's safekeeping in such a location implies a level of cooperation between mother and daughter that goes beyond their surface interactions. The Dark Moon Ring itself is far more than a piece of jewelry. It is a focal point for cosmic forces that exist beyond the Greater Will's influence. The ring serves as both a key to unlock Ranni's final transformation and a symbol of the alternative cosmic order she intends to establish. Its creation would have required knowledge and materials that existed outside the normal academic traditions, suggesting connections to the same forbidden knowledge that the Snow Witch had once taught. The journey deeper into the underground realms, through Nokstella and toward the Lake of Rot, represents a gradual progression into increasingly hostile and alien environments. Each level deeper removes the travelers further from anything resembling normal reality, testing their commitment to the quest and their ability to function in truly hostile conditions. Nokstella, the eternal city beneath the earth, provides glimpses of civilizations that once defied the Greater Will and paid the price for their rebellion. The ruins and remnants found here serve as both warning and inspiration, a demonstration of what happens to those who challenge cosmic authority. but also proof that such challenges are possible and can achieve partial success even in defeat. The architecture and artifacts of Nokstella suggest a technological and magical sophistication that rivaled or exceeded anything achieved by surface civilizations. The fact that this city continued to exist in some form, even after its punishment, speaks to the resilience of its builders and the partial effectiveness of their rebellion. For Ranni, these ruins served as both precedent and cautionary tale. The Lake of Rot represents perhaps the most challenging environment in the entire underground journey. This vast expanse of corrupted water, teeming with creatures infected by the scarlet rot, creates a landscape that is actively hostile to most forms of life. Crossing this lake requires not just physical endurance, but spiritual fortitude, the ability to maintain purpose and direction in the face of overwhelming corruption. The symbolism of the Lake of Rot extends beyond its immediate challenges. The rot itself represents decay and transformation, but also the kind of change that comes without conscious direction or purpose. In contrast to Ranni's carefully planned transformation, the rot offers mindless corruption that destroys rather than transcends. Successfully navigating this environment demonstrates the superiority of conscious change over random mutation. The creatures that inhabit the Lake of Rot, from the pest-like enemies to the massive stone formations that serve as bridges, all represent different responses to corruption and change. Some have been transformed into monsters. Others have adapted to serve functional purposes within the hostile environment. This diversity of responses serves as a reminder that transformation can take many forms, not all of them desirable. The temple complex at the far end of the Lake of Rot marks the approach to the deepest levels of the underground journey. These structures, carved from living rock and decorated with symbols that predate known civilizations, represent the intersection between surface politics and cosmic forces. Here, the boundary between the terrestrial and the divine becomes increasingly thin. The elevator that leads deeper still into the earth serves as a final transition point, a passage from realms that still bear some resemblance to known reality into spaces that exist according to entirely different principles. The fact that such infrastructure exists suggests that the connection between surface and cosmic realms has ancient precedents, that the separation between mortal and divine is not as absolute as most believe. The approach to Astel's domain represents the culmination of the underground journey, a passage into a realm where even the basic laws of physics seem negotiable. The vast caverns, the impossible geometry, and the presence of creatures that exist partially outside normal reality all serve to prepare travelers for the ultimate confrontation with forces that transcend earthly understanding. Chapter 9, The Cosmic Horror. The encounter with Astel, natural born of the Void, represents one of the most significant challenges in Ranni's questline, not merely because of the creature's immense power, but because of what it represents in terms of cosmic forces and the nature of reality itself. Astel is not simply a powerful monster to be defeated. It is a manifestation of the kind of alien intelligence that exists in the spaces between worlds, a being whose very presence challenges fundamental assumptions about the ordered nature of existence. Astel's title, Natural Born of the Void, provides crucial information about its origins and nature. Unlike creatures that evolved within the known cosmos or were created by familiar divine powers, Astel emerged from the void itself, the empty spaces that exist between stars, worlds, and realities. It represents a form of life that develops in the absence of the organizing principles that govern normal existence, making it fundamentally alien to everything the inhabitants of the lands between understand about the nature of life and consciousness. The creature's physical form reflects its void origins in disturbing ways. Its massive insectoid body combines elements that seem to come from entirely different evolutionary trees, while its numerous appendages and sensory organs suggest capabilities that extend far beyond normal biological functions. The way it moves and attacks demonstrates an understanding of space and physics that differs radically from terrestrial norms, as if it exists partially outside the dimensional constraints that limit other beings. Perhaps most unsettling is Astel's apparent intelligence. This is not a mindless monster driven by simple instincts, but a conscious entity with goals and motivations that remain largely incomprehensible to terrestrial minds. Its actions suggest a long-term agenda that extends beyond simple territorial defense or predatory behavior. The fact that it guards the passage to the Moonlight Altar suggests that its presence in this location is not coincidental. It may have been placed there deliberately, either by cosmic forces seeking to prevent Ranni's ascension, or by ancient powers trying to test the worthiness of those who would challenge the established order. The battle against Astel serves as the ultimate test of the Tarnished's commitment to Ranni's cause. This is not a fight that can be won through conventional tactics or overwhelming force alone. Astel's abilities, its teleportation, its reality-bending attacks, its capacity to manipulate gravitational forces, require the Tarnished to adapt their understanding of combat to accommodate threats that operate outside normal physical laws. The creature's attacks themselves seem designed to break down the mental barriers that separate ordered thought from cosmic horror. Its grab attacks don't just inflict physical damage, they expose the victim to direct contact with void-touched consciousness, creating psychological trauma that goes far beyond mere pain. Its energy blasts seem to carry traces of the void itself, threatening not just physical destruction but existential dissolution. But perhaps most significantly, Astel's presence serves to demonstrate the kind of forces that Ranni herself is preparing to engage with on a cosmic scale. If the Tarnished cannot handle a single void-born entity, they would be utterly unprepared for the challenges involved in confronting the greater will itself, or establishing a new cosmic order. The battle serves as both test and preparation for the even greater challenges that lie ahead. The successful defeat of Astel opens the passage to the Moonlight Altar, but it also marks a fundamental transformation in the nature of the quest. Up to this point, the challenges faced by the Tarnished have been difficult but comprehensible within normal frameworks of understanding. From this point forward, they will be dealing directly with cosmic forces that operate according to principles that transcend mortal comprehension. The Moonlight Altar itself represents a threshold between the terrestrial and the divine, a place where the boundaries between different levels of reality become permeable. The very air in this region seems charged with cosmic energy, and the landscape bears the marks of forces that exist beyond normal understanding. This is not simply a magical location, it is a place where the fundamental laws that govern reality become flexible and negotiable. Chapter 10. The Moonlight Altar. The ascent to the Moonlight Altar marks the beginning of the final phase of Ranni's millennia-spanning plan. This ethereal plateau, suspended between earth and sky, serves as the stage for her ultimate transformation from rebellious demigod to cosmic sovereign. But the altar is more than just a location. It is a nexus of power where multiple realities converge, where the barriers between mortal and divine become thin enough to cross. The journey to reach this sacred space has required the Tarnished to prove themselves against increasingly impossible odds, but the challenges they have faced pale in comparison to what awaits them here. The Moonlight Altar exists partially outside normal reality, sustained by forces that predate the Golden Order and may even predate the Greater Will's dominion over the lands between. Here, among ruins that speak of civilizations lost to time and powers beyond mortal comprehension, Ranni will attempt something that has never been successfully accomplished: the complete overthrow of an established cosmic order. The altar's most striking feature is its impossible architecture, structures that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, towers that cast shadows in directions where no light source exists, and paths that lead to destinations that should be geometrically impossible. This distortion of space and time reflects the concentration of cosmic forces in this location, the convergence of powers that exist beyond the normal rules of physics and causality. The presence of glintstone dragon Adula adds another layer of complexity to this already charged environment. This ancient worm has sworn fealty to Ranni's dark moon, representing one of the few instances where a being of such power and antiquity has voluntarily submitted to an ascending cosmic force. Adula's presence serves both as guardian and as testament to the legitimacy of Ranni's claim to cosmic authority. The dragon's oath to the dark moon is particularly significant because dragons exist partially outside the normal hierarchy of the lands between. They predate the Golden Order and maintain connections to cosmic forces that the current rulers barely understand. For such a being to recognize Ranni's authority suggests that her transformation has already begun to resonate across multiple levels of reality. The Cathedral of Manus stands at the heart of the Moonlight Altar, a structure that seems to have been designed specifically for cosmic transition rituals. The cathedral's name itself provides clues to its purpose. Manus, suggesting hands or manipulation. Celis, relating to celestial or cosmic forces. This is a place where mortal hands can reach out to grasp cosmic power, where the boundaries between terrestrial and divine can be deliberately crossed. The interior of the cathedral reveals even more about the nature of the forces at work here. The architecture combines elements from multiple traditions, some recognizably Kerrion, others that seem to predate known civilizations entirely. The symbols carved into the walls speak of cosmic cycles, stellar movements, and the kind of astronomical knowledge that was once the province of the most advanced magical practitioners. But the cathedral's most significant feature lies beneath the main floor, a hidden chamber that can only be accessed through a concealed opening near the altar. This underground space serves as the final destination for Ranni's physical journey, the place where she has waited in her original corporeal form for the culmination of her plans. The descent into this hidden chamber represents more than just a physical journey. It is a passage into the deepest mysteries of Ranni's nature and intentions. Here, surrounded by the corpses of two fingers and the detritus of cosmic authority, lies the true heart of her rebellion against the established order. The chamber itself is a study in contrasts. The organic curves of the walls suggest natural formation, yet the precision of certain architectural elements speaks to deliberate construction. Ancient symbols cover every available surface, some recognizable as variants of Kerrion script, others that seem to predate known written language entirely. The air itself seems thick with accumulated magical energy, the residue of rituals and transformations that have taken place over countless years. The presence of the dead two fingers in this chamber tells a story of cosmic conflict that extends far beyond Ranni's personal rebellion. These are not merely symbols of rejected authority, they are the actual remains of cosmic entities that once served as intermediaries between the greater will and the mortal realm. Their destruction represents a direct assault on the infrastructure of divine control, a severing of the communication channels between cosmic and terrestrial authority. The condition of these corpses suggests that their destruction was not recent, implying that Ranni's preparations for this moment have been underway for far longer than most of her allies realized. The precision and completeness of their destruction also indicates a level of power and knowledge that goes beyond anything she had previously demonstrated, suggesting that her transformation has been proceeding gradually over an extended period. But the most significant presence in this chamber is Ranni herself. Not the doll form that has served as her public face for so long, but her original body, transformed by years of cosmic exposure into something that exists at the boundary between mortal and divine. This form bears the scars of her self-inflicted death during the Night of the Black Knives, but it has also been transformed by forces that transcend normal understanding of life and death. The reunion between Ranni's consciousness and her original form represents the culmination of a plan that has spanned centuries and required sacrifices that would have broken lesser beings. but it also marks the beginning of something entirely new. Not just the restoration of what was lost, but the creation of something that has never existed before. Chapter 11. The Dark Moon. Rising. The moment when the Tarnished places the dark moon ring upon Ranni's finger marks one of the most significant transformations in the history of the Lands Between. This is not simply the coronation of a new ruler or the succession of one divine authority by another. It is the fundamental alteration of the cosmic order itself, the replacement of an entire paradigm of existence with something unprecedented and untested. The Dark Moon Ring serves as more than mere jewelry or symbol of office. It is a focal point for cosmic forces that have been gathering for millennia, a key that unlocks not just Ranni's potential for godhood, but access to entirely different principles of cosmic governance. The ring's creation would have required knowledge and materials that exist beyond the boundaries of any single magical tradition, suggesting that Ranni's preparations for this moment drew upon sources of power and wisdom that predate known civilization. The actual ceremony of investiture is remarkable for its simplicity compared to the complexity of the forces it unleashes. No elaborate rituals or cosmic alignments are required. Simply the placement of the ring upon the appropriate finger by one who has proven themselves worthy of serving as witness and champion. This simplicity reflects one of the fundamental differences between the Dark Moon's approach to power and that of the Greater Will, where the latter requires elaborate hierarchies and complex bureaucracies. The former operates through direct personal connection. But the apparent simplicity of the ceremony belies the profound nature of the transformation it triggers. As the ring settles into place, Ranni undergoes a change that affects not just her physical form, but her very nature as a conscious entity. The barriers that have separated her consciousness from cosmic forces begin to dissolve, allowing her to access levels of awareness and capability that transcend mortal understanding. The first visible sign of this transformation is the restoration of her physical presence in a form that combines elements of her original body with the accumulated power of her years as a doll. This new form retains the four-armed configuration that has served her so well, but it is clearly no longer artificial. Instead, it represents a synthesis of mortal origin and cosmic potential, a being that exists simultaneously on multiple levels of reality. The Dark Moon itself begins to manifest more directly in response to Ranni's transformation. What was once a distant cosmic force becomes an immediate presence, a source of power and authority that Ranni can channel directly rather than merely invoking from afar. The moon's influence extends beyond simple magical enhancement. It represents access to an entirely different understanding of how reality can be structured and governed. Ranni's dialogue during and after this transformation provides crucial insights into her understanding of what she has become and what she intends to accomplish. Her words speak not of conquest or domination, but of liberation, the freeing of mortal consciousness from the constraints imposed by cosmic authorities that care nothing for individual will or desire. This is revolution, not just in political terms, but in the most fundamental metaphysical sense. The gift of the Dark Moon. Greatsword serves multiple purposes within the context of this transformation. On the practical level, it provides the Tarnished with a weapon that channels some of Ranni's newfound cosmic authority, marking them as her chosen representative and champion. But more symbolically, it represents the extension of her power into the material realm, the beginning of her influence over the world that lies beyond this sacred space. The Greatsword itself is a masterwork that combines the finest traditions of Kerrion craftsmanship with cosmic forces that transcend normal understanding of metallurgy and enchantment. Its blade holds the cold light of the Dark Moon, while its edge can cut through more than mere physical matter. It can sever the bonds that tie beings to unwanted cosmic influences, much as Ranni herself has broken free from the Greater Will's control. But perhaps the most significant aspect of this transformation is what it reveals about the nature of cosmic authority itself. Ranni's ascension demonstrates that the power to govern reality is not inherently tied to any particular cosmic entity or established order. The Greater Will's dominion over the lands between was not based on some inherent right or natural law, but simply on the absence of viable alternatives. By providing such an alternative, Ranni fundamentally changes the nature of the game. The immediate aftermath of her transformation begins to reveal the scope of the changes she intends to implement. Her vision of the Age of the Stars is not simply a replacement of one cosmic authority with another, but a fundamental restructuring of the relationship between divine and mortal realms. Under her governance, the cosmic order will maintain a distant relationship with mortal affairs, allowing individuals to determine their own fates without constant divine interference. This approach represents a radical departure from the micromanagement style of the Greater Will, which sought to control every aspect of existence through elaborate hierarchies and detailed regulations. The Dark Moon's governance appears to be more like that of a distant star, providing light and general guidance, but not dictating the specific choices that individuals must make in their daily lives, based on Ranni's descriptions of her intended rule. The implications of this new approach extend far beyond simple political freedom if Ranni's vision comes to pass. Under the Age of the Stars, death will likely return to its natural role as a transition rather than an ending or punishment. Individuals may gain the freedom to pursue their own understanding of meaning and purpose, without being forced to conform to cosmic mandates. The rigid caste systems and predetermined roles that characterize the Golden Order could give way to genuine freedom of choice and self-determination. But Ranni's transformation also comes with responsibilities and burdens that she appears to have considered carefully, based on her dialogue about the path ahead. As a cosmic sovereign, she will need to maintain the basic stability that allows civilized life to continue while avoiding the overreach that characterized her predecessors. This requires a delicate balance between guidance and interference, between providing structure and allowing freedom, a balance that will test even her considerable wisdom. The creation of the Age of the Stars also represents an experiment on a cosmic scale. No one knows with certainty how a reality governed by principles of distant guidance rather than direct control will actually function. The success or failure of this new order will depend not just on Ranni's wisdom and restraint, but on the ability of mortal beings to handle the increased responsibility that comes with genuine freedom. The relationship between Ranni and the Tarnished following her transformation provides a model for how she intends to exercise her new authority. Rather than commanding or controlling her champion, she offers partnership and collaboration. The Tarnished is elevated to the role of consort, not through cosmic decree, but through mutual choice and demonstrated compatibility. This personal relationship serves as a template for the broader relationship she intends to establish between cosmic and mortal realms. Chapter 12. The Age of Stars. The establishment of the Age of Stars represents not merely a change in cosmic leadership, but a fundamental transformation in the relationship between divine authority and mortal existence. Ranni's vision for this new age reflects years of careful consideration about the failures of previous cosmic orders and the principles necessary for a more equitable arrangement between celestial and terrestrial realms. The most significant aspect of the Age of Stars is its commitment to distance and restraint in cosmic governance. Where the Greater Will sought to micromanage every aspect of existence through elaborate hierarchies and detailed mandates, Ranni's Dark Moon will maintain what she describes as a distant relationship with mortal affairs. This distance is not neglect or abandonment, but rather a conscious choice to allow mortal beings the space necessary for genuine self-determination. This principle of cosmic restraint has profound implications for how reality will function under the new order. The rigid caste systems that characterize the Golden Order, where individuals were born into predetermined roles and expected to serve cosmic purposes regardless of their personal desires, will give way to genuine freedom of choice. People will be able to determine their own paths in life based on their individual capabilities, interests, and moral convictions rather than cosmic mandate. The restoration of death to its natural role represents another crucial element of the Age of Stars. Under the Golden Order, death had been largely removed from the world, creating a stagnant immortality that prevented genuine renewal and change. Ranni's order will allow death to resume its function as a natural transition, enabling the kind of generational renewal that keeps civilizations vital and adaptive. This is not a return to mortality as punishment, but an acceptance of death as a necessary component of meaningful existence. The magical and technological implications of the Age of Stars extend far beyond simple political changes. With the Dark Moon as the primary cosmic influence, magical practices that were previously forbidden or dangerous may become accessible to properly trained practitioners. The cold sorceries that Ranni learned from the Snow Witch, the stellar magic that allows manipulation of gravity and fate, and perhaps even more exotic disciplines may flourish under the new cosmic paradigm. The relationship between the various races and species of the lands between is also likely to change significantly under Ranni's governance. The Golden Order's emphasis on hierarchy and purity created artificial divisions between different types of beings, elevating some while marginalizing or oppressing others. The Age of Stars' commitment to individual worth rather than cosmic mandate may allow for more equitable relationships between humans, demi-humans, and other sentient beings. The economic and social structures that developed under the Golden Order will likely require significant adaptation to function effectively under the new cosmic paradigm. The elaborate bureaucracies that enforced cosmic mandates may become unnecessary, while new institutions focused on enabling individual choice and protecting personal freedom may need to be developed. This transition period will likely be challenging as societies adapt to unprecedented levels of autonomy and responsibility. The educational and cultural implications of the Age of Stars are equally profound. Under the Golden Order, knowledge was carefully controlled and compartmentalized, with certain types of learning restricted to specific castes or forbidden entirely. Ranni's commitment to individual self-determination suggests that access to knowledge and education will be dramatically expanded, allowing people to pursue learning based on their interests and aptitudes rather than their social position. The role of magic in daily life is likely to change significantly under the new order. The Golden Order's emphasis on incantations tied to specific divine authorities may give way to more diverse magical traditions that allow individuals to develop their own relationships with cosmic forces. The sorcerous traditions of Raya Lucaria, the heretical practices that were once forbidden, and entirely new forms of magical expression may all find their place in the Age of Stars. The question of law and justice under the new order presents interesting challenges. Without cosmic mandates to define right and wrong, societies will need to develop their own ethical frameworks based on reason, compassion, and mutual agreement rather than divine decree. This may lead to more flexible and adaptive legal systems, but it will also require individuals to take greater responsibility for the moral dimensions of their choices. The international implications of the Age of Stars extend beyond the borders of the lands between. If Ranni's experiment in cosmic governance proves successful, it may inspire similar transformations in other regions that are currently under the influence of different outer gods. The Age of Stars could potentially become a model for cosmic liberation movements throughout the wider universe, fundamentally altering the balance of power between mortal and divine realms, on a scale that transcends any single world. But the Age of Stars also comes with risks and uncertainties that cannot be ignored. The freedom that Ranni offers to mortal beings includes the freedom to make poor choices, to harm themselves and others, and to create new forms of suffering that cosmic authority might have prevented. The success of the new order will depend largely on the ability of mortal beings to exercise their newfound freedom responsibly and constructively. The long-term sustainability of the Age of Stars will require ongoing vigilance to prevent the emergence of new forms of tyranny or the gradual erosion of the freedoms that the new order is designed to protect. Without cosmic mandates to enforce behavior, societies will need to develop robust institutions and cultural values that protect individual liberty while maintaining the cooperation necessary for civilized life. The personal cost to Ranni herself of establishing and maintaining the Age of Stars should not be underestimated. As a cosmic sovereign, she's accepted responsibilities that will likely isolate her from normal mortal experience while requiring her to make decisions that affect countless lives. The loneliness and burden of such authority may prove to be as challenging as any of the obstacles she faced in achieving it. The relationship between Ranni and her tarnished consort provides a model for how personal relationships might function under the new cosmic order. Their partnership is based on mutual choice and demonstrated compatibility rather than cosmic decree or social convention. This emphasis on voluntary association and genuine affection may become characteristic of relationships in the Age of Stars, as individuals gain the freedom to form connections based on personal rather than institutional factors. Chapter 13. The Witch's Legacy. The story of Ranni the Witch extends far beyond her individual journey from Kerrion princess to cosmic sovereign. Her legacy encompasses fundamental changes in how power, freedom, and responsibility are understood and exercised throughout the lands between and potentially beyond. The implications of her rebellion and ultimate success will likely reverberate through reality for ages to come, influencing not just political structures, but the basic assumptions that shape how conscious beings relate to cosmic forces. Perhaps the most significant aspect of Ranni's legacy is the demonstration that cosmic authority is not absolute or unchangeable. Before her rebellion, the dominion of outer gods over mortal realms seemed as natural and inevitable as the movement of stars or the changing of seasons. Her successful challenge to the greater will proves that even the most fundamental aspects of reality can be transformed by individuals with sufficient knowledge, determination, and willingness to sacrifice. This revelation has profound implications that extend far beyond the immediate political changes in the lands between. If one cosmic order can be overthrown and replaced, then others might be vulnerable as well. Ranni's success may inspire similar liberation movements in other realms under different outer gods, potentially leading to a cosmic renaissance of freedom and self-determination that spans multiple worlds and realities. The methodological innovations that Ranni developed during her long campaign against the greater will represent another crucial component of her legacy. Her approach combined careful scholarly research, strategic patience, sophisticated deception, and precisely timed decisive action in ways that had never been attempted before. Future revolutionaries and reformers may study her techniques as models for how to challenge entrenched power structures effectively. The philosophical framework that underlies the Age of Stars represents perhaps Ranni's most enduring intellectual contribution. Her synthesis of individual freedom with cosmic responsibility, her balance of guidance with autonomy, and her integration of mystical wisdom with practical governance create a new paradigm for how divine and mortal realms can interact constructively. These ideas may influence political and spiritual thinking for generations to come. The personal relationships that Ranni cultivated throughout her journey provide models for how loyalty, friendship, and love can function under conditions of extreme adversity and moral complexity. Her bonds with figures like e.g., her complex relationship with Blaidd, and her partnership with the Tarnished demonstrate different ways that trust and affection can develop and endure, even when conventional social structures are breaking down. The magical and technological innovations that emerged from Ranni's research and experimentation represent another dimension of her legacy. The techniques she developed for transferring consciousness between different forms, the magical principles underlying the creation of the Black Knives, and the cosmic mechanics that enabled her transformation to godhood, all represent advances in understanding that may have applications far beyond their original purposes. The preservation and transmission of knowledge represents one of the ongoing challenges related to Ranni's legacy. Many of the insights and techniques that enabled her success were developed in secret and shared only with a small circle of trusted allies. Ensuring that this knowledge is preserved and made available to those who might need it in the future will require careful planning and perhaps the establishment of new institutions dedicated to safeguarding revolutionary wisdom. The cultural impact of Ranni's story is likely to be profound and long-lasting. Her transformation from dutiful princess to cosmic rebel provides a narrative framework that can inspire individuals facing their own struggles against oppressive authority. The specific details of her journey may become legendary, providing both inspiration and practical guidance for those seeking to create positive change in their own circumstances. The artistic and creative expressions inspired by Ranni's story represent another facet of her cultural legacy. The visual imagery associated with her transformation, the four-armed doll, the dark moon, the ethereal beauty of the moonlight altar, provides rich material for artists, poets, and storytellers seeking to explore themes of transformation, rebellion, and transcendence. The educational implications of Ranni's success extend beyond the immediate changes in governmental structure. Her story demonstrates the importance of diverse sources of knowledge, the value of questioning established authorities, and the potential for individuals to achieve seemingly impossible goals through persistent effort and strategic thinking. These lessons may become integral parts of educational systems that emerge under the Age of Stars. The scientific and magical research programs that may develop under Ranni's cosmic order represent another aspect of her legacy. With restrictions on forbidden knowledge lifted and new cosmic forces available for study, scholars and practitioners may make discoveries that transform understanding of reality itself. The Age of Stars may usher in a period of unprecedented intellectual and magical advancement. The diplomatic and international implications of Ranni's success will likely require careful management to prevent unnecessary conflicts with other cosmic orders. Her approach to these challenges may establish precedents for how revolutionary movements can coexist with established powers, potentially reducing the violence and instability that often accompany major political transformations. The long-term evolution of the Age of Stars will depend partly on how well Ranni's initial vision adapts to changing circumstances and unforeseen challenges. The flexibility and resilience of the new cosmic order will be tested by events that cannot be anticipated, requiring ongoing innovation and adjustment to maintain the balance between freedom and stability that Ranni sought to achieve. The question of succession and institutional continuity represents one of the most complex aspects of Ranni's legacy. Unlike the hereditary systems that characterized previous cosmic orders, the Age of Stars' emphasis on individual merit and choice creates uncertainty about how leadership transitions will be managed in the future. The mechanisms that Ranni establishes for these transitions may become crucial elements of her institutional legacy. The psychological and spiritual impact of living under a cosmic order based on freedom rather than control will likely take generations to fully manifest. Individuals who have grown up under systems of divine mandate may need time to adapt to the increased responsibility and autonomy that the Age of Stars provides. The success of the new order will depend partly on how well it helps people develop the capabilities necessary for constructive self-governance. Chapter 14. Reflections on Revolution. As we draw near the conclusion of our journey through the complete lore of Ranni the Witch, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the broader themes and implications of her extraordinary story. Ranni's transformation from Kerrion princess to cosmic sovereign represents more than just a personal journey of growth and achievement. It embodies fundamental questions about power, freedom, responsibility, and the nature of existence itself. The scale and audacity of Ranni's rebellion forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the relationship between stability and justice, between order and freedom. The Greater Will's cosmic governance provided stability and predictability, but at the cost of genuine self-determination for the beings under its influence. Ranni's revolution offers the promise of freedom, but with the inherent risks that come with increased responsibility and reduced external guidance. This tension between security and liberty reflects real-world dilemmas that have faced human societies throughout history. Ranni's story provides a framework for thinking about these challenges on the largest possible scale, where the stakes include not just political freedom, but the fundamental nature of reality itself. Her success demonstrates that even the most entrenched systems can be changed, but also illustrates the enormous personal and social costs that such transformations typically require. The moral complexity of Ranni's methods raises important questions about the ethics of revolutionary action. Her willingness to orchestrate the death of an innocent family member, to manipulate allies who trusted her, and to set in motion events that cause suffering for countless people, challenges simple notions of heroism and villainy. Her story suggests that genuine transformation may sometimes require actions that cannot be easily categorized as purely good or evil. This moral ambiguity reflects the complex realities faced by anyone seeking to create significant positive change in circumstances where conventional approaches have failed. Ranni's choices force us to consider whether there are situations where extreme actions may be justifiable in pursuit of greater freedom and justice, and how we might evaluate the ethics of revolutionary behavior when the alternatives involve perpetuating systems of oppression. The role of knowledge and learning in Ranni's success cannot be overstated. Her rebellion was made possible not just by her magical power or political position, but by her commitment to understanding the fundamental principles that governed the cosmic order she sought to change. Her willingness to learn from unconventional sources like the Snow Witch, to study forbidden knowledge, and to synthesize insights from multiple traditions, enabled her to conceive of possibilities that others could not imagine. This emphasis on the transformative power of knowledge has particular relevance in our contemporary world, where access to information and education often determines an individual's capacity to improve their circumstances and contribute to positive social change. Ranni's story suggests that one of the most radical acts may be the pursuit of understanding that transcends conventional boundaries and challenges established assumptions. The importance of patience and long-term thinking in Ranni's strategy provides another crucial lesson for anyone seeking to create meaningful change. Her rebellion was not an impulsive reaction to immediate circumstances, but the result of centuries of careful planning and preparation. She understood that genuine transformation requires time to develop the necessary knowledge, build the required alliances, and create the conditions that make success possible. This emphasis on strategic patience stands in contrast to the immediate gratification and quick solutions that characterize much contemporary thinking about social and political change. Ranni's success demonstrates that the most significant transformations may require sustained effort over extended periods, with individuals willing to sacrifice immediate rewards for long-term goals that may not be fully realized within their own lifetimes. The network of relationships that enabled Ranni's success illustrates the crucial role of collaboration and mutual support in achieving ambitious goals. Despite her extraordinary individual capabilities, she could not have succeeded alone. Her story highlights the importance of building trust, managing complex alliances, and inspiring others to commit to shared visions, even when the personal costs are high. The diversity of Ranni's allies, from the scholarly Iji to the practical Seluvis to the loyal Blaidd, demonstrates the value of bringing together individuals with different skills, perspectives, and capabilities. Her ability to coordinate these diverse talents toward common goals provides a model for how revolutionary movements can harness collective strength while respecting individual contributions. The tragic elements of Ranni's story, particularly the fate of Blaidd and the personal costs of her transformation, remind us that even successful revolutions involve genuine losses that cannot be easily dismissed or rationalized away. Her willingness to accept these costs while still maintaining her commitment to her broader goals speaks to the kind of moral courage that may be necessary for creating positive change under difficult circumstances. The question of whether Ranni's rebellion was ultimately justified cannot be answered definitively, as it depends on value judgments about the relative importance of stability versus freedom, order versus self-determination. Her story provides material for deep reflection on these fundamental questions without offering easy answers. Instead, it challenges us to think more carefully about the complex relationships between cosmic and earthly authority, individual and collective responsibility, and the various forms that justice might take under different circumstances. The continuing relevance of Ranni's story lies not in its specific magical and fantastical elements, but in its exploration of universal themes that remain important regardless of the particular circumstances in which they are encountered. Questions about challenging unjust authority, building alternative institutions, managing the relationship between idealism and pragmatism, and maintaining hope in the face of overwhelming obstacles are as relevant today as they were in the fictional world of the Lands Between. Conclusion: The Eternal Moon. As we reach the end of our deep dive into the complete lore of Ranni the Witch, we find ourselves contemplating a story that transcends the boundaries of its fictional setting to speak to fundamental aspects of the human experience. Ranni's journey from dutiful princess to cosmic revolutionary embodies timeless themes of growth, sacrifice, transformation, and the endless struggle between freedom and control that has shaped conscious beings throughout history. The complexity and depth of Ranni's character make her one of the most compelling figures in the rich tapestry of Elden Ring's lore. She is neither simple hero nor villain, but a fully realized individual whose choices emerge from understandable motivations while having consequences that extend far beyond her personal circumstances. Her story demonstrates the kind of sophisticated character development and thematic exploration that has made FromSoftware's games so enduringly influential in the gaming community and beyond. The world building that surrounds Ranni's story represents a masterclass in creating fictional universes that feel both fantastical and authentic. The careful attention to detail in establishing the cosmic mechanics that govern her reality, the intricate web of relationships that connect various characters and factions, and the deep history that provides context for contemporary events, all contribute to a sense of immersion that allows players to become emotionally invested in outcomes that matter. The philosophical questions raised by Ranni's rebellion continue to resonate long after the final cutscene has played. Her challenge to cosmic authority invites players to consider their own relationships with various forms of institutional power, while her methods force examination of the ethical complexities involved in creating positive change under difficult circumstances. These themes give the story a depth and relevance that extends far beyond entertainment. The technical and artistic achievement, represented by Ranni's questline, demonstrates the potential of interactive media to create meaningful narrative experiences. The way her story unfolds through environmental storytelling, character interactions, item descriptions, and player actions creates a form of collaborative storytelling that allows individuals to discover and interpret meaning in personal and unique ways. The community that has formed around analyzing and discussing Ranni's lore represents one of the most positive aspects of contemporary gaming culture. The collaborative effort to understand complex narratives, the respectful debate about different interpretations, and the creative expressions inspired by compelling characters all demonstrate the potential for games to foster intellectual engagement and artistic inspiration. Looking toward the future, Ranni's story provides a framework for thinking about the ongoing evolution of interactive storytelling and the potential for games to address increasingly sophisticated themes and questions. As the medium continues to mature, stories like Ranni's may help establish precedents for the kind of depth and complexity that players can expect from the most ambitious narrative experiences. The enduring appeal of characters like Ranni also speaks to the hunger for stories that take their audiences seriously, that assume intelligence and emotional sophistication, and that aren't afraid to explore challenging themes or ask difficult questions. In an entertainment landscape often dominated by simple pleasures and immediate gratification, such characters provide an alternative that honors the complexity of human experience. The technical innovation required to create and present Ranni's story also represents an important achievement in game development. The seamless integration of multiple gameplay systems, the coordination of visual and audio elements to support thematic content, and the creation of interactive sequences that feel both meaningful and entertaining, all required sophisticated planning and execution. As we consider the legacy of Ranni the Witch within the broader context of gaming history, we can see her story as part of a continuing evolution toward more sophisticated and meaningful interactive narratives. She represents the kind of character that can only exist within the gaming medium, whose story requires player participation to reach its full potential, and whose impact depends on the active engagement of the audience. The story of Ranni the Witch reminds us why we turn to great narratives in any medium, not just for escape or entertainment, but for insight into ourselves and our world, for models of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming challenges, and for hope that even the most entrenched systems can be changed by individuals willing to commit themselves to something greater than their immediate self-interest. In the cold light of the dark moon that now governs the Age of Stars, we see reflected not just the culmination of one character's extraordinary journey, but a vision of what becomes possible when intelligence, determination, and moral courage combine to challenge the seemingly unchangeable. Ranni's revolution may be fictional, but the principles it embodies, the value of knowledge, the power of strategic thinking, the importance of collaboration, and the possibility of genuine transformation, remain as relevant and inspiring as ever. The witch's work is complete, but her legacy endures, inviting each of us to consider what cosmic orders in our own lives might benefit from the kind of careful, patient, and ultimately successful challenge that Ranni brought to hers. In a universe vast and cold and full of powers that seem beyond our ability to influence, her story stands as a testament to the potential that exists within each conscious being to shape reality according to their highest ideals and deepest convictions. May her dark moon light the way for all who seek to transform the world according to principles of wisdom, justice, and genuine freedom. The Age of Stars has begun, and its possibilities are as infinite as the cosmos itself. And so concludes our deep dive into the complete lore of Ranni the Witch. We've explored her origins as Kerrion royalty, her education under the mysterious Snow Witch, her designation as an Empyrean, and the burden it placed upon her shoulders. We witnessed her orchestration of the Night of the Black Knives, her transformation into a doll, and her patient cultivation of the perfect champion to aid in her cosmic rebellion. We followed her underground odyssey through realms that exist at the boundaries of reality, her confrontation with void-born horrors, and her ultimate ascension at the Moonlight altar. We examined the establishment of the Age of Stars and the revolutionary principles it represents, as well as the lasting legacy of her unprecedented challenge to cosmic authority. Through it all, we've seen how Ranni embodies themes that transcend her fictional origins. The struggle for freedom against oppressive systems, the moral complexity of revolutionary action, the transformative power of knowledge and strategic thinking, and the potential for individuals to reshape reality according to their highest ideals. Her story reminds us that even in a cosmos dominated by powers beyond mortal comprehension, there remains space for agency, choice, and the pursuit of justice. The dark moon that now governs the Age of Stars represents not just the triumph of one extraordinary individual, but a beacon of hope for all who refuse to accept that the current order of things is the only order possible. Whether you choose to follow Ranni's path to the stars, or pursue one of the other endings that Elden Ring offers, her story enriches our understanding of the complex moral landscape that FromSoftware has created. She stands as perhaps the most sophisticated example of how video game narratives can explore profound philosophical questions while maintaining the engaging storytelling that makes these experiences so compelling. The Lunar Princess turned cosmic sovereign has achieved her revolution, but the questions her story raises about power, freedom, sacrifice, and the nature of justice will continue to resonate with players for years to come. In the end, Ranni the Witch represents the best of what interactive storytelling can achieve, a character whose journey challenges us to think deeply about our own world while losing ourselves in the wonder of another. Thank you for joining me on this comprehensive exploration of one of gaming's most fascinating characters. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore of Ranni the Witch, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more extensive examinations of gaming's greatest stories. Until next time, fellow adventurers, may your own journeys be guided by the same courage, wisdom, and determination that carried the Lunar Princess to the stars themselves.